I'd grown up with heroes of the revolution. Lenin, Stalin, Mao, Fidel, Che, Martin Luther King, and Dolores, La Pasionaria. Yes, you had to be a tiny woman to be a legend. Heroes were shining figures you carried inside your head to cheer up the grey parts. Blown up portraits, flooding an eager imagination. Arise, ye starvelings, from your slumber, tears rolling down the face, the crowds marching past Lime Street Station, December 1952. I was 7, and this was the Cold War. It was chilly in Liverpool that Sunday afternoon as we trooped past St George's Hall, the great soot-covered lions baring their teeth and prancing up to wave hello. Childhood life for me and my 2 younger brothers was a glittering political stage. The audience was hazy, muted, indistinct, but out there, beyond the floodlights, swung the great banners, the grand slogans, the cheap exchange trips to pre-68 Czechoslovakia, fraternity greetings between young comrades from Prague and Birmingham, Holland Park and Barrow-in-Furness, as we all trudged gaily on rambles and marches along the ever-winding road towards socialism, freedom, and a land of milk and plenty. No matter that I still wore short socks at the age of 15, that my understanding of boys was shadowy, that I was frowned on by my headmistress for imitating Tommy Steele during a cookery class, that my home life seemed muffled in tension, I could subscribe as an honorary graduate, an honorary delegate to another world outside, simply by using my brain. My brain was the most flirtatious part of my personality. Its pictures were complete. Here, in this bright, ultra-bright cavern, I was the true sophistiqué. A big head on little shoulders. Oh, before my time, I looked eternally young. Try as hard as I could never, ever grow up to be tall. 40 years later, I'm still on the stretch, recalling those early flights over the slate-grey rooftops, soaring into another plane where I could breathe more easily. I had, after all, been born an asthmatic. We were Jews, but we were atheists. We were Liverpudlians, but we'd moved to London. We were middle class, but we were near destitution. Ostracised because of our beliefs, our holidays were spent not at Margate or even Blackpool, but at Wortley Hall Labour Home of Rest, on Workers' Education Association summer schools with veteran communist composer Alan Bush. Our camp trips were run not by the Boy Scouts or Girl Guides, but by the Young Communist League. For trips abroad, we visited East Germany rather than Ibiza. I trailed around 6 Baltic ports en route to Leningrad via a now capsized cruise ship called the Bashkiria on a subsidised ticket. £30 to drink vodka and mango juice and visit the Hermitage. I can't say I enjoyed the experience. I notched it up along with the rest, stuffing them into a vacant cell at the back of my mind. I hoped they'd add up someday to a completed puzzle, a life worth living. I don't remember being absorbed. Things seemed frozen. And then came the offer. A trip to North Africa with a group of folk singers to the first international festival of music and song. In 1964, Algeria was newly independent after years of bloody French oppression, over 2 million dead during the 7-Year War. The mood would be jubilant. Everyone would be under 25. The trip via Marseille and Mallorca would be a mere £25. I couldn't sing, and the only instrument I possessed was a 3-string balalaika from an official Russian gift shop called Gum. But the spirit of international friendship was willing. and I was only 19. We took a cattle boat from Marseille to Algiers, stopping at Las Palmas to disgorge the French. Arabs were forced to remain on board ship. Lying back on a crowded deck with my face turned to the sun, I had my first introduction to a two-tier society. But as the boat docked at Algiers, crowds lined the quayside and surged through the streets in a passion I'd never seen or felt before. They were celebrating the end of a centuries-old colonization by the Romans, the Turks, and finally the French, waving huge placards of their new premier, Ben Bella, above their shoulders. We camped at Sidi Farouche. The site chosen was symbolic. This village on the outskirts of Algiers had endured French invasion in 1830. To the strains of Ray Charles, I Can't Stop Loving You. We wandered along the beach to the next village, bombed out save for OAS graffiti scrawled along the sea wall. Smart in their navy button-up suits, the Chinese delegation carried chairs in neat formations down to the water's edge. We British were a conformist lot too, with our beer and our jolly jokes. Life seemed dangerous. A tall blonde French businessman drove me to his white open-plan Algiers apartment to listen to French music. It was a breathless zigzag route along the rocky winding roads to the big city. Plied with whiskey, my trump card was that I was greenly innocent. Still in the land of A-level textbooks, I mistook his invitation for a platonic one. He was furious. You nearly lost something then. This was my French introduction, first introduction to the taste of garlic, enough to repel me from a full-blown continental affair, day 2 into the holiday. Bonjour, Miriam. Je m'appelle Farid, smiled a voice with a strong Algerian accent from the next tent. Farid Bashkiri was the perfect radical hero. An internationalist, a multilinguist, soon to add English to his collection of tongues that included Chinese and Russian. A member of the Algerian resistance movement, the FLN, imprisoned for a year in the recent war against the OAS. He had the electric torture marks on his chest to prove it. As an ex-freedom fighter, he'd been elevated into a war hero, provided by the state with free travel, housing, holidays, education. He'd even become a TV announcer. Now he'd been placed in charge of the international delegations on the beach. Still only 23, he was a keen student, presently studying international law at Patrice Lumumba University in Moscow. Small, dark and intense, he reminded me of my father. His own father was a famous Algerian poet and comic actor. We drank Pernod inside his tent. I hated its cloudy texture. He tried to kiss me. I demurred. I was too young then to know that I didn't fancy him either. I didn't know what he wanted. A worldly folk singing companion offered to lend me contraceptives, the cap or the pill. Was it possible to swap around just like that, I wondered. I declined in relief, but listened to his tales of Moscow student life with wide eyes. Looking back, of course, I should have been more wary. Even those who talk of unshakable fraternity between nations turn out to be a disappointment. C'est un rêve, he'd said. Un rêve. The smell of méchoui barbecued lamb, roasted whole on a spit, heralded our departure. Still raw, it burnt our fingers. Although I'd rejected Farid, I felt drawn to him and remembered a twisted sense of business unfinished when he left for Moscow the day we returned to England. The energy and the spirit of the revolution seemed to fly with him. We'll meet again, be it in Moscow, Paris, Algiers or London, he'd write, forever on the move. inhaling a mixture of coffee and whiskey from some quayside cafe in Marseille, I felt vaguely homesick. I couldn't work out which country I was pining for. Algeria, now so hotly familiar, a refound Heim, or England, wet, damp and earthbound. I needed pork pie quickly, I mumbled at Victoria Station. The pig is forbidden territory to Jew and Muslim alike. Is it the shared heritage of things forbidden that beckons so attractively? I'd felt at home in this Arab country, more Semitic than before, a kindred spirit. As a young child reared in a non-kosher home, I remember instinctively recoiling at the smell of pork dished up for school dinners. A true Jew unbidden. And now, here I was, rushing to catch up on the taboo-raking rituals without prompting. I tore the pork pie from its plastic wrapper. It was firm, overspiced and jellyish. One was enough to last me the next 20 years. We corresponded, or rather, I wrote to Farid a long, classically handwritten letter in blue ink arrived by return from Moscow. The envelope bore a picture of Yuri Gagarin on the front and roses on the back. The address, Prospect Lenin. Moscow, 8th December 1964. Très chère Miriam. Don't think I've forgotten you. I think incessantly of you, our meeting, our séjour at the seaside, our discussions with the Belgian, the French, the Russian comrades. Don't forget that the festival recommences next year, July 28th. It would be an immense pleasure for me if you would return. My parents are simple people and would welcome you with great joy. Bonjour to the English comrades who are with us at Algiers. Respectful greetings to your parents. Please send me, dear Miriam, some badges of English, sporting, artistic and political events, and I will send you some Russian ones. And send me a photo of you at Sidi Farouche. Here is a view of the River Mokba. Hoping to greet you next year and walk with you across the Red Square. Je t'embrasse, Farid. I booked a plane for the next summer, eagerly looking forward to meeting Farid and his family at the airport. But then, the British nationals briefly reported, there was a coup. Ben Bella had been deposed by an austere Boumedienne regime, something to do with agrarian reform. My mother was nervous. Whilst a spirit of solidarity cutting through religio-politico barriers prevailed in theory, the thought of her only daughter marrying an Arab on the tail end of a short-lived revolution seemed to throw her into panic. International friendship, but only on a part-time basis, was the warning. Simply going at all seemed a provocative act. I cancelled the flight. Over a dozen letters, solemnly inscribed and illustrated with scenes of Russian woodland life, pictures of museums and Sputniks, portraits of Lenin and gymnasts, arrived to throw me into disarray over the next 2 years. By 1966, the letters were petering out, but as they waned, they grew ever more agitated. And then the literary liaison just fell asleep. Perhaps he was dead, imprisoned by Boumedienne. Perhaps he'd gone underground. Perhaps he'd simply disappeared. As the years rolled by and I slipped into my 20s, the whole episode slipped from my memory. A narrow escape from a dangerous, diverted destiny. I was safe in England. The thrill of security disturbed had been tantalizing. But I was, after all, my mother's daughter. It would take me another 23 years to respond to that thrill once more. In 1986, my father came across an old cardboard box in his attic, stuffed with childhood memorabilia, old birthday cards from teenage brothers, 60s mementos decorated with velveteen flowers, polka dot dirndls and swinging discs in a licorice all-sort display. We'd moved from up north to swing in London when I was 16 and the Beatles hit town. Wish I was with you having a fab time, gushed Gloria Greenslade from Liverpool 13. Dear Miriam, How could I have forgotten so many good wishes, obliterated between Lancashire and the breathless south? There were C&D slogans, minutes to YCL meetings, I was the chair, intimate letters from important personages. Dear Miriam, carry on the good work. Your dance drama on Vietnam and the Spanish Civil War was important and moving. Best wishes to you and all the comrades at number 48. Copies of Challenge, subscription forms to Peace News and Aldermaster marches, and casually stuffed behind some no nuclear war over Cuba leaflets, a bunch of perfectly inscribed 20-year-old letters from Moscow, secured with an elastic band. My life was already chaotic and overstuffed. I couldn't face another assault. I needed all the space I could get. The box, in all its political significance, stood accusingly in the lounge, pushed from corner to corner, side to side, whenever it caused an obstruction. I tried to make it disappear, erasing my own past. I couldn't face sorting through the years and filing them away. They'd have to wait for the official autobiography, lying in wait as aide memoir to a life that commenced just after D-Day, 1945. One morning, desperately avoiding the pressure of work, I attacked the box in an energetic fit. It became smaller. Its contents shrunk into personal, political, the purely comic. Darling Miriam, I can't wait to hold you in my arms again. I've been wondering what to do with the badge you gave me and thought it'd be a good idea to polish it and hang it around my neck as a constant reminder of you. I hope, as you say in your letter, you don't starve yourself to death. I love you too much to let you go like that. Well, I'm about to kiss you goodnight, darling, even if it's only in my dreams. I shrieked, the object of so many forlorn and wilting rejected lovers. And then the transatlantic letters once again. Cursorily, I packed them down one side of the box and forgot all about them. The box was transferred, businesslike, to my study, behind an old desk. 6 weeks ago, I was chatting with an old friend with a similar transatlantic tale to tell. Should she follow up an old flame or let him burn out? I threw in my own North African semi-adventure. Why don't you write, she suggested, just to check he's all right. I would. If she would, I should. Another chore to add to the list of bills, articles, unmade phone calls, another loose end to clear up. But there was trepidation. For 20 years or more, I'd assumed this man to be dead. I didn't really want my suspicions confirmed. And so late one night, uninspired, I typed out a badly constructed note. Dear Farid, I'm sorry I never turned up at the airport all those years ago. It was on account of the revolution. I'm sorry it's taken so long to write. I'm just hoping, after 23 years, that everything's going well with you. I was a dance teacher for some years, then an actress for 15, and now I'm a journalist and choreographer. I'm divorced and have a daughter, aged 8, called Josie. At the moment, she is asleep. I hope you are well. Love, Miriam. My stilted tone had been translated into schoolgirl French, recalling the short socks and liberty bodice style of our first meeting. I turned up his old address, Villa Maxime, Route Auvergne, Bourg-Belkir, Algiers. Bound to be extinct by now, I thought, as I dropped the letter into the postbox and probably forgot all about it. I noted a fortnight's silence, but the thought slid just as easily from my mind. Escaping from a class of desultory 16-year-olds with whom I'd built up a doubtful rapport, I'd fled gratefully to the seaside for a weekend hideout. I arrived home well after midnight to hear the telephone ringing. Miriam Levy? Asked a strange foreign-sounding voice, echoing in triplicate down the wire. Yes, I replied. Ici, c'est Farid. Farid Bashkiri. Farid? C'est pas vrai, I exclaimed. Where on earth are you? Algiers? And are you well? Oui. Et toi, et tes parents, et Josie? Comment ça va, la Josie? Such a kindly, caring, almost avuncular voice. I couldn't believe this person was still alive, and now willing, in a trice, to assume such solicitousness for my extended family. Unbelievable. Where do you live? Kuwait. What do you do for a living? Le pétrole. And what about politics? Oh, those were student days, he laughed. Have you children? Yes, 3. Where are they? In Kuwait. My father wants to see you. He was waiting 23 years ago at the airport. Why didn't you turn up? The revolution. I couldn't work out what happened. Did Boumedienne really... Yes, I had some problems, he broke in. Miriam, I have a proposition to suggest. You and Josie will come to Algiers for the month of August to spend time with me and my family. Think about it. I'm coming to London in 10 days' time for 1 or 2 days only. I will ring as soon as I arrive. I kiss you, embrace you, and will speak to you soon. Miriam, au revoir. I reeled away from the phone, excited and mystified. Sleep dashed for the night. My French so creakingly bad I couldn't quite understand the gist of what he'd been saying. And it was after midnight. My brain was still lazy from English afternoons by the sea and the long train journey home. I staggered through the next 2 days. Of course we couldn't go to Algeria for the summer. I couldn't possibly afford it, for one thing. 2 days later, at 1 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang again. Miriam, c'est Farid. Bonjour, ça va, et la Josie? Miriam, I have another proposition to make to you. This weekend, July the 5th, is the 25th anniversary of Algerian independence. It would be most interesting for you. Can you come to Algiers on Sunday? Tuesday at the latest. But I have no money. It's out of the question. No matter, I will pay your fare. If it is too complicated to arrange, I'll pay this end and send you a ticket. Give me a day to think about it. I'll phone you tonight, about 6 o'clock. Could I abandon my teaching job and my daughter? Was it too short notice to book a ticket? Did I have the nerve to complete an unfinished 23-year-old journey? Later that night, I tried to ring. Impossible, these transatlantic phone calls. The line was continuously engaged. And then, no reply. Around 1 a.m., I caught him. Farid, the lines have been blocked for hours. I have been away on business. I could possibly come on Tuesday for 1 week only. Ella, no return flights till July 15th. You can stay longer with my father whilst I return to Kuwait, July 7th or 8th. Impossible. Can you try to book the flight from London and see if there are earlier return flights? I'll phone you tomorrow morning. By Monday, the jet-setting Farid was nowhere to be tracked down. I was desperate. My teaching job was a nightmare. When 4S finally ran off into the distance shouting, "Boring, boring," I realised my allegiance to Mangrove Comprehensive School was finally dead and buried amongst a horde of manically sophisticated teenagers who thought my feeble attempts at teaching choreography by video were laughable. It was then that I decided to go to Africa the next day. By midnight, with an incommunicado host, my resolve had weakened, and Project North Africa appeared to have been disbanded. I fell asleep, half-packed, irresolute. At least I'd refused to teach the next day. That was some small measure of revolt.